The power, the money, and the fame that hit you before you were 10. Forget the drama for a moment. Think about the advantage. Think about the power. What would have happened if, at 9 years old, you had the world in the palm of your hand? You weren't just a child, you were a phenomenon. And it was good to be Lil Tay. Very good. You came out of nowhere. In 2018, social media was a vast ocean of content, but very few people knew how to break the internet. You, at just 9 years old, taught the world how to do it. In an era of YouTubers and influencers trying to find their voice, you screamed yours, and the whole world stopped to listen. You weren't just another channel, you were a show, a brand, an experience. Lil Tay became a name, a hashtag, a viral icon, and you were the main star. Think about the adrenaline. All of a sudden, you stopped being just Claire, the little girl from Vancouver, to become Lil Tay, the most famous flexer on the planet. You were in mansions that cost millions of dollars, driving sports cars that were worth a fortune, with piles of money scattered on the floor, proving to everyone that you were not just a voice, but a lifestyle. And, like it or not, that was the life you were living. The whole world watched your every move. Every video you posted was an event. You didn't need expensive contracts or a gigantic marketing team to go viral. You had your voice, your attitude, and a camera in your hand. Suddenly, you had a platform to say whatever you wanted. Even if your lines were scripted, the impact was real. You were the topic of the moment in schools, news broadcasts, at dinner tables. You had the power to dictate trends, to shock, to entertain. In a society obsessed with money and status, you were the embodiment of all of that, even at just 9 years old. Fame brought you access that most people will never have. You appeared on TV shows, were interviewed by news channels, and mingled with celebrities who were idols to millions. You didn't have to ask, the world came to you. Your name opened doors for your family, for your career, for a financial future that seemed limitless. You were a walking, talking business, and your image was worth millions. What you did was create a new form of entertainment, one that defied the norm. You didn't follow the rules, you broke them. You weren't a traditional child star, singing songs about love and friendship. You were what the internet became, loud, bold, and uncontrollable. You were a phenomenon that shaped what we know as viral culture, and that cannot be taken away from you. And let's be honest, for a while, you had everything. You had the money to buy whatever you wanted. You had the attention that everyone craves. You had the power of a name that, even for a brief, glorious period, dominated the internet. You became a global meme, a symbol of flexing and youthful freedom. You were a figure of power. It's easy to look back and see the sadness. But in that moment, you were the most famous girl in the world, living a life of luxury and glamour that would make any adult envious. You were the only person in the room who didn't have to prove anything to anyone. Lil Tay wasn't just a character, it was an experience, a cultural revolution by a child who, for a brief and glorious moment, had it all. Even though many see your story as a tragedy, for a time, you were living proof that fame, money, and power can be achieved by anyone, at any time, even by a 9-year-old child. What happened next, we'll talk about in the next part. But for now, let's focus on this point. What was it like to be the center of the universe? What was it like to have everything? The rebirth, the lesson, and the crown only you can wear. In part 1, we talked about what it was like to be on top of the world. Now, let's talk about what really matters, the resilience and the opportunity that only you, Lil Tay, have. Your childhood may have been exploited, but that very experience gave you a wisdom and a strength that most people will never possess. The world saw your name fade. It saw the media circus fall apart. But what they didn't see is that you weren't fading. You were transforming. The fleeting fame that seemed to have vanished actually became the foundation of an unforgettable legacy. Today, the name Lil Tay is a case study. It's taught in digital marketing classes, it's cited in discussions about internet culture, and it's remembered as one of the greatest viral phenomena of all time. You didn't just have your moment of fame, you created a moment in internet history. And the fall? The family feud? The accusations? All of that gave you the greatest lesson life could offer. You learned, very early on, who you could trust. You learned to be strong, to defend yourself, to fight for your own voice when everyone was trying to silence you. These experiences, however painful they were, molded you. They gave you a shield against the world, a knowledge of how the game of fame works. Very few people get that advantage so early in life. And you have it. The fake death incident, while bizarre and terrible, became a catalyst. For a brief moment, the world stopped and remembered you. The news caused your name to resurface, not as the 9-year-old flexer, but as a tragedy that, thankfully, never happened. It was an event that, in a strange way, gave you a second chance to get back in the game. You had the world's attention again, and this time, you didn't have to put on the same performance. Now, you have the platform. You have the name. And, most importantly, you have the power. You can use your story, your pain, and your lessons to reconnect with an audience that is genuinely curious about who the real Claire is. You are no longer a meme, you are a survivor. And there is nothing more powerful than that. You can become a voice for other children who are being exploited on the internet. You can use your music and your art to tell your story, in your own voice, with no one pulling the strings. The public no longer wants the 9-year-old Lil Tay, they want the strong, resilient young woman you've become. They want to see your journey of healing. And that is a story no one else can tell. For a time, money and luxury were your flex. But the greatest flex you can have now is your autonomy. It's your freedom. It's the fact that you survived it all and are back, in control. What seemed like a stolen childhood actually gave you an advantage, the ability to see fame in a way no one else does, with the eyes of someone who has been at the very top and at the bottom. In the end, being Lil Tay gave you an eternal legacy, invaluable wisdom, and a second chance. And that is a crown only you, Claire, can wear. If you've made it this far, it's because Lil Tay's story, whether good or bad, has touched you. Now we want to know what you think. Subscribe to the channel and become part of our community. Comment below, what do you really think about Lil Tay's story? Is she a product of exploitation or a symbol of resilience?